The world was quiet that night. The kind of quiet that comes before something important happens. The kind of quiet that makes people look up at the sky without knowing why. Captain Alara Mendez sat in the control room of the Orpheus station, a small human research outpost floating above Earth's moon. She had seen thousands of strange signals before. Comets, space junk, even alien probes had never stayed long. But this time, this one was different. A single red that blinked on her screen. It was coming fast. Too fast. And it was huge. Unknown object entering lunar orbit, she said, her voice calm but tight. Her second officer, Juno, leaned forward. Could be one of ours? Ilara shook her head. No human ship moves like that. The station's alarms began to sound. Outside the observation window, something massive broke through the darkness, a shadow blocking out the stars. It wasn't a ship. It was a fortress, a city in space. Every sensor lit up red. Radiation, energy spikes, movement. It wasn't here by accident. Earth's defense network went on alert within seconds. Missiles armed, satellites pointed, and panic spread through command centers all across the planet. Ilara stood by the glass, watching as the object slowed, almost like it was looking at them. Then it stopped moving. It simply floated there, silent and cold. Every military broadcast on Earth went quiet, waiting. Then, from deep inside the dark structure, a signal came through, one sound that shook everyone who heard it. A low, growling tone followed by a clear voice. "We have found you." The voice was not human. It was deep, layered, and powerful. People described it as a storm trapped in metal. Back on Earth, the United Nations called an emergency meeting. Every leader, every general, every scientist, all asking the same question. What did it mean? Who were they? But Ilara already knew. Somehow, she didn't know how, but she felt it. A deep, ancient memory that wasn't hers. She whispered to herself, "It's not the first time they've been here." Hours passed. The alien ship remained in orbit, unmoving. And then, without warning, a smaller vessel detached and began descending toward Earth. All over the world, cameras turned toward the sky. People filled the streets, staring up as the craft entered the atmosphere like a burning star. It landed not in a military base, not in a city, but in the middle of the African desert, on the same sands where human history began. The world held its breath. Soldiers surrounded the site within minutes. Drones circled above. The air shimmered with heat and tension. The ship's door opened. Out stepped a creature taller than any human, built like a nightmare. Muscles covered in dark armor, skin marked with glowing symbols, eyes burning like molten gold. It stood there for a moment, scanning the humans who pointed their weapons at it. Then, slowly, it dropped to one knee. The silence that followed was heavier than sound. Through a translator drone, the creature spoke in broken, slow English. "We found our masters." The soldiers froze. The commander on site, General Reeves, took a step forward. "Repeat that," he said. The creature lifted its head. Its eyes met his. "We serve. We always have. Humanity leads us." Confusion rippled across the world. The broadcast was live on every screen. People gasped. Some thought it was a trick. Others felt a strange, deep emotion they couldn't explain. Ilara watched the feed from the station. Her heart pounded. The creature's armor, it had symbols, old ones. She recognized them. Human shapes, human language. She whispered, "It's ours. Somehow it's ours." Back on Earth, scientists began analyzing the alien words, matching them to ancient data, forgotten myths, cave paintings, and symbols from across history. And in every culture, they found echoes of the same thing. Creatures of shadow who once called humanity the Makers, For 40,000 years, they had vanished. Now they were back. Governments tried to send ships to attack, to test the alien vessel, but every attempt failed. The alien ship simply disabled every missile mid-flight. No destruction, just silence. They were not here to fight. They were here to find. That night, Alara couldn't sleep. She stood by the viewing window, staring at the massive structure still hanging above the moon. Her computer beeped, an incoming transmission. The source, the alien ship. The message was short, only one sentence. Captain Alara Mendez, you carry the blood of command. You are the first we recognize. Her breath caught. How did they know her name? Her face? Her blood? The message ended with a single line in a language no one had seen for millennia, but Alara understood it instinctively. Lead us again. The screen went black. Below, Earth trembled with fear and wonder. Above, the stars seemed to watch quietly. And far beyond human eyes, millions of other ships began to stir, responding to the same signal, the same call. The galaxy's deadliest species had returned, and they were waiting for orders from humanity. For the next 3 days, Earth stood still. No wars, no riots, no news louder than the same question. Who were they and why did they kneel? Captain Alara Mendez had not slept since the message. She replayed it again and again, the deep alien voice saying her name, the words, lead us again. She didn't understand it. She wasn't a leader, not really, just a captain on a small research post near the moon. But the aliens, the Apex, seemed to know her, not as a person, but as something more. The United Nations Space Council invited her back to Earth. When she stepped onto the landing pad, hundreds of soldiers saluted. Cameras flashed. To them, she was the woman the aliens had chosen. In the council chamber, General Reeves stood beside her. You're the first human they've spoken to directly, he said. They think you're their commander. Alara shook her head. That's impossible. Maybe, the general replied, but they believe it. On a large screen behind them, images of the Apex ship rotated slowly, layer after layer of strange symbols covering its surface. Linguists, historians, and AI translators worked day and night, trying to decode the markings. Then one morning, a scientist ran into the room, pale and trembling. We found it, he shouted. It's not alien text. It's ancient human. Everyone went silent. The markings weren't random. They were written in a language older than any known civilization, older than Sumerian, older than anything found on Earth. It matched symbols carved in caves across Africa and Asia. Alara stared at the images. Her heart began to race. I've seen these, she whispered, in my grandmother's old necklace, the one from the Andes. The scientist nodded. Yes, the same pattern. These marks appear in ancient ruins all around the planet, but no one ever knew what they meant. Until now, on the big screen, he zoomed in on one symbol, a circle with 3 lines beneath it. This, he said, means Origin Command, and it appears again and again near Alara's name in the Apex database. The council room erupted in noise, questions, disbelief, fear. Alara felt dizzy. She had no idea what any of it meant, but deep inside, something clicked. That night, she dreamed of stars. She saw humans, tall, proud, standing beside massive creatures like the Apex. She saw fleets of shining ships crossing the galaxy, carrying banners marked with the same circle and line symbol. She heard a voice whisper, "We led them, we ruled the stars." She woke up gasping, sweat running down her face. The next day, she was flown to the desert landing site, where the first Apex still waited. The creature was silent, sitting motionless in the sand, like a statue. When it saw her, it stood, towering, powerful, yet strangely calm. Elara stepped closer. "You know me," she said quietly. "How?" The apex tilted its head. "You carry the memory of the makers," it said. "Your kind made us. You led us in the Great March." "The Great March?" she asked. "When your people left this world," the creature answered, "to build the first empire among the stars. You called yourselves humanity eternal. We called you command." Elara's mind spun. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Humans didn't have space travel 40,000 years ago." The apex leaned closer, its golden eyes bright. "You did, and then you fell. The stars went dark. We waited." It reached out a claw, touching the sand. The grains began to glow, forming an image, a map of the galaxy. Thousands of stars lit up, and around many of them, small dots appeared, colonies. Human colonies. "You ruled here," the apex said, "for 40,000 years, until the darkness came." The darkness. That word echoed in Alara's mind. She asked, "What darkness?" The apex's voice dropped lower. "The swarm. The enemy without form. They consumed your empire. They ended everything. You order us to hide, to wait until you returned." Elara's eyes widened. "And now, the apex said, we have found you again." The swarm stirs. It comes. "You must remember who you are." Her hands trembled. This wasn't just about aliens. This was about humanity's lost history. Back at the research labs, scientists confirmed more evidence. Ancient DNA samples, carvings found on Mars from old missions that now made sense. Every clue pointed to one shocking truth. Humanity had once been everywhere, but something or someone erased it all. The apex continued to kneel in the desert, refusing to move until given orders. They didn't eat. They didn't sleep. They just waited. Across the planet, more ships appeared, each landing in quiet, empty places, each releasing one kneeling apex warrior. Humanity didn't understand it yet, but they were surrounded by their own forgotten soldiers. Elara stood under the stars, looking up at the giant ship above the moon. A storm was coming, not from the sky, but from history itself. The world's leaders met again. Some wanted to destroy the apex before it was too late. Others, like Elara, believed they were key to survival. When asked what she thought, she said quietly, "If what they say is true, then we're not facing the future. We're facing our past." The chamber fell silent. Outside, lightning flashed across the desert where the apex waited. They looked up, as if sensing something in the dark, something old and hungry. The galaxy was beginning to wake up again, and humanity was just starting to remember. The world was no longer the same. Since the apex arrived, everything had changed. The news ran one story, 24 hours a day. The headlines said it all. Alien warriors kneeled to humanity. Are we the lost masters? The return of the forgotten empire. Some people celebrated. Others panicked. Religions split. Nations argued. And the sky no longer felt like it belonged only to humans. Captain Elara Mendez had become a symbol. Everywhere she went, cameras followed. People called her Commander of the Apex, a title she never wanted. She didn't feel like a leader. She felt like a witness to something far bigger. In the middle of all the chaos, the United Nations built a special facility deep in the Sahara Desert. They called it Base Meridian, a neutral ground for communication with the apex. It was surrounded by soldiers, scientists, and fear. When Elara arrived, she was greeted by General Reeves. His face looked older, his voice harder. "They're not talking to anyone but you," he said. "They say it's disrespectful to speak to anyone below command." Elara sighed. "They keep saying that word, command, But I don't remember any of this. Reeves nodded. Maybe your memory isn't the one they mean. They walked into a vast hangar. 10 Apex stood there, perfectly still. Their armor shimmered like dark glass. Even when they breathed, the air felt heavier. When Alara entered, all 10 turned and dropped to one knee. The sound of their claws striking the floor echoed through the room like thunder. "Command present," one of them said. The scientists stared in silence. For the first time in human history, the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy knelt. Not in war, but in respect. Alara stepped closer. "Why are you here?" she asked. "Why now?" The Apex leader, a massive figure with scar running down its face, spoke slowly. "Because the swarm moves again. The dark comes. We cannot face it alone." Alara frowned. "And you think humans can stop it?" "You already did," it said. "Long ago. You led us. You built the light that burned the swarm away. But when you fell, we could not keep it alive." Those words spread like fire across the world. The swarm, a threat from beyond the stars. Something that once ended humanity's first empire and might be returning. The reaction was chaos. Some governments believed it was a lie, a trick to control humanity. Others wanted to attack the Apex before they could strike first. And some, the dreamers, the historians, the scientists, believed it completely. They started searching through old archives, ancient data, even myths and legends. Strange stories from every culture began to make sense. Gods who fell from the stars, beasts who guarded the sky, golden eyes watching from the dark. All were fragments of one truth. The Apex had been here before. Meanwhile, public fear grew. In some cities, people built statues of the Apex as protectors. In others, they burned effigies, shouting, "No masters, no gods." The world was splitting between belief and terror. Inside Base Meridian, Alara watched the broadcasts, her hands trembling. She whispered, "They're breaking apart just like before." The Apex leader turned its golden eyes toward her. "It is the nature of your kind to question power," it said. "It is also your strength. That is why you led us." Alara looked at it. "We don't even remember leading you." "Memory is not the same as truth," it replied. "The blood remembers, even when the mind forgets." The room went silent. The Apex bowed its head and said one more thing. "The stars will burn again soon. When they do, command must stand ready." That night, Alara sat alone outside the facility, staring at the endless sand. She wondered if humanity was ready for any of this. The truth was terrifying, not that aliens had come, but that humans once ruled them. Her comm device buzzed. It was General Reeves. "Captain," he said, "we just got something." He sent her a file, a signal from deep space. It wasn't human. It wasn't Apex. It came from somewhere far beyond the known galaxy. A steady pulse, repeating the same pattern. 3 short bursts, 1 long. Alara recognized it instantly. She had seen it in her dreams. The same rhythm carved into the Apex armor. The mark of the swarm. "Are you sure this is real?" she asked. Reeves' voice cracked. "Yes, and it's coming closer." Alara looked back at the Apex ship hanging silently above the moon. It glowed faintly, as if sensing the signal too. Then she saw it. Hundreds of lights flickering on across its surface, like eyes opening after a long sleep. "They're waking up," she whispered. The Apex leader appeared beside her. "We will fight," it said, "but we need command to lead. We need humanity to remember." Alara stared into the desert night. She wasn't sure what frightened her more, the enemy coming from the dark or the power humanity once had to defeat it. Above them, the stars shimmered, cold, distant, and full of memory. The swarm was real. The apex were ready. But the question that now echoed through every human heart was the same. What will humanity do when the galaxy remembers who we were? And far beyond, in the black between galaxies, something vast began to move. Something older than time. Something hungry. The silence before the storm had ended. The galaxy had started to wake. The stars were no longer silent. Every telescope on Earth pointed toward the same strange signal, the one repeating from deep space. 3 short bursts, one long, over and over again. The same pattern carved into apex armor. The mark of the swarm. Captain Alara Mendez stood in the command room of Base Meridian, staring at the holographic map floating above the table. Dots filled the display, hundreds of them. Each one was an apex fleet. Waking up across the galaxy, they weren't invading. They were answering a call. General Reeves watched beside her. "How many are there?" he asked. "Too many to count," said one of the analysts. And they're all transmitting one phrase in unison. Ilera looked at the translation on screen. The command returns. The word sent chills down her spine. Scientists have spent weeks decoding Apex archives. Ancient databanks hidden in their armor, their ships, even in their blood. What they found changed everything humans thought they knew about history. 40,000 years ago, humanity hadn't just reached the stars. They had owned them. Across the galaxy stretched the first human empire, ruled not by kings or nations, but by a council of explorers. People who believed humanity's destiny was to bring light to the dark. The Apex were their guardians, bioengineered from creatures found on a dying world. They were made strong enough to survive anywhere, fast enough to protect human colonies, and loyal beyond fear. To the Apex, humanity wasn't just their creators. They were sacred purpose. But then, the swarm came. The archives showed visions, waves of shadow consuming entire star systems, devouring planets until nothing remained but silence. Even the Apex, the strongest hunters in the galaxy, could not stop it. Humanity fought back. They built ships larger than continents, weapons that could burn suns, armies of humans in Apex side by side. For centuries, they held the line. And then, suddenly, they vanished. No one knew why. The records ended mid-battle. The coordinates of the homeworld were erased. The Apex were left alone, following one final command from their human masters. Wait for our return. Guard the stars until the command awakens. And so they did. For 40,000 years they waited. Ilera listened to the recordings in silence. The voices in the old data were human, clear, calm, and powerful. They spoke of duty, courage, unity. It didn't sound like myth. It sounded like memory. She turned to Reeves. "We built an empire and we lost it." He nodded slowly. "Or maybe someone took it from us." The Apex leader, the same towering warrior who had first knelt before her, entered the chamber. Its presence filled the room. It bowed its head. "We have found more fragments," it said, "from the core worlds of the First Empire." It placed a device on the table, a small orb covered in glowing lines. The orb projected a hologram of a world filled with shining towers and silver seas. "This was Solara," said Apex, "your throne world. From here, you ruled the stars. We remember the day it fell. The hologram shifted. The skies of Solara darkened. Giant shapes moved through the clouds, the swarm. Cities burned. Oceans boiled. Ilera stepped closer, watching the destruction. You were there." The Apex's golden eyes dimmed. "Yes, I was a soldier then. I fought beside your kind. I saw your ships burn. I saw your leader, the one you called the first command, give the final order." Ilera's voice shook. "What order?" "To destroy Solara, so the swarm could not take it." The room fell silent. The Apex continued. The explosion blinded the stars for a generation. When the light faded, you were gone. Only we remained. Ilara looked down, her chest tight. Humanity had once ruled a galaxy, and then erased itself to stop an enemy beyond imagination. She whispered, "Why don't we remember?" The apex turned its gaze toward her. "Because you chose to forget, to protect yourselves, to hide from what was coming. You buried your own past." Ilara's voice cracked. "Then why bring it back now?" "Because the swarm returns, and you are the only ones who ever stopped it." Outside, the desert winds howled. The apex ship above the moon pulsed with faint light, like a heartbeat. Earth's skies shimmered with strange auroras as old technology reactivated. Human DNA scans began to reveal something new. Traces of dormant code, old genetic markers matching those found in the apex's archives. Proof that humanity had once been more. Across the world, people began to dream. Dreams of stars, of battles, of a galaxy ruled by human hands. It was as if memory itself was waking. Ilara stood beneath the night sky, her reflection flickering in the glass of her helmet. She whispered to herself, "We were gods once, and we forgot." In orbit, the apex fleet shifted formation. They aligned around the moon, creating a pattern identical to an ancient human symbol. 3 lines beneath a circle, the mark of command. Ilara watched in silence as the symbol glowed bright against the dark. The apex leader stood beside her. "The time has come," it said. "The first empire will rise again." Ilara didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on the stars, the same stars her ancestors once ruled. And deep in her mind, a voice that wasn't hers whispered, "Remember who you are." The galaxy was no longer waiting. It was remembering too. The galaxy trembled. For the first time in 40,000 years, the signal of the swarm echoed once more. 3 short bursts. One long, the rhythm of extinction. Across the solar system, telescopes and satellites went blind. Strange interference spread like wildfire, static filled with whispers. Every transmission carried the same hidden message: "We are coming." At base meridian, Captain Ilara Mendez stood before a room of generals and scientists. The air was thick with fear and disbelief. General Reeves slammed his fist on the table. "You're telling me something out there can jam every signal from Mars to Earth? That's impossible." The apex leader, standing silent in the corner, turned its golden eyes toward him. "It is not impossible," it said. "It is how the swarm begins." Reeves glared at it. "Then tell us what we're facing." The apex's deep voice rumbled through the chamber. "They are not a species. They are hunger, living shadow. They take form only to devour it. Worlds fall silent before they are seen." The scientists exchanged nervous looks. One whispered, "A hive mind?" The apex nodded. "No mind, only instinct. One will, one endless hunger. They cannot be reasoned with. They do not stop." A heavy silence filled the room. Ilara's voice broke through it. "How long until they reach us?" The apex turned to the holographic map. The display shimmered, showing countless red marks spreading through space like blood and water. "Their outer tendrils have already entered this galaxy," it said. "They feed on suns first, then worlds." Reeves' face hardened. "How much time do we have?" "Weeks," the apex answered. "Perhaps less." The room erupted in chaos, shouting, fear, orders. But Ilara stood still, staring at the map. She whispered, "It's happening again." 2 days later, the world watched as strange readings appeared beyond Neptune. Sensors picked up movement, something massive drifting through the dark, a shape larger than any ship, larger even than the apex fortress above the moon. It moved like smoke, like a shadow swallowing the light of distant stars. and every camera that tried to record it failed. Within hours, Neptune's outer station stopped transmitting. Then the next, then all of them. An entire planet's edge went silent. Humanity had seen invasion movies, alien threats, apocalyptic warnings, but nothing felt like this. This was quiet. This was inevitable. At the United Nations Command Center, panic spread. Every leader shouted orders. Fleets launched, missiles armed. But the apex warned them again and again. Your weapons are useless. You cannot burn what is not flesh. No one listened. Human ships moved toward Neptune, proud and bright. The best humanity could build. They never returned. The apex watched from orbit, silent. When the feeds cut off, Elara felt something twist inside her. Fear mixed with anger. She turned to the apex leader. You said you fought them before. How do we win? The creature bowed its head. You didn't win. You endured. The swarm cannot be killed. It can only be contained. Elara frowned. Then what are we supposed to do? Remember, it said, your ancestors built the weapon that burned their worlds. It still sleeps, hidden within your home system. We will help you find it. The next week, Apex ships began searching the moon, Mars, and the asteroid belt. They moved with strange precision, scanning for energy signatures buried deep in rock and metal. Meanwhile, humanity's fear turned into anger. Protests erupted. People demanded answers. Some called for war. Others begged to surrender to whatever was coming. The world was cracking apart under the weight of its own confusion. Through it all, Elara remained calm, or tried to. Every night, she saw flashes in her dreams. Burning skies, human voices giving orders in languages she didn't know, apex soldiers kneeling before her, and one phrase whispered in her sleep, light the star forge. She didn't know what it meant, but every time she heard it, she woke up shaking. One evening, as she stood alone outside Base Meridian, the apex leader approached quietly. The desert wind howled between them. The swarm's edge reaches Mars, it said. Soon, your world will see the darkness with its own eyes. Elara turned toward it. Tell me the truth. Why us? Why did you wait for humans to return? The apex looked up at the night sky. Because only you can make the impossible real. You are chaos and creation in one. You build us. You led us. And when the swarm came, you taught us to fight even when hope was gone. It looked at her almost gently. You are the command, Elara, not just by blood, but by will. Before she could answer, alarm sounded from the base. Technicians shouted, incoming object, multiple entries, heading for Earth's orbit. Elara and the apex rushed inside. The holographic map lit up red. Hundreds of new signals appeared, smaller, faster, alive. The swarm had arrived. Outside, the night sky split open. Streaks of black fire fell from orbit, striking the oceans, deserts, and cities. Everywhere they landed, the light dimmed, as if the world itself were being swallowed. The apex leader turned to her. It begins again. Command must rise or all will end. Elara clenched her fists, her voice steady even as fear gripped her heart. Then we rise. Far beyond Earth, something stirred deep beneath the moon's surface. Ancient machinery waking after 40,000 years. A pulse of light ran across the craters like veins of fire. The star forge was waking. The war for the galaxy had begun. The world was burning. Black clouds rose from oceans where the swarm's fragments had struck. Cities vanished into silence. Every signal, every light that touched the darkness was consumed. In the chaos, Base Meridian became humanity's last command post. Inside, soldiers, scientists, and apex warriors moved side by side, humans and monsters working as one. Captain Elara Mendez stood in the center of the command room, eyes locked on the giant screen. It showed the moon, glowing with strange, ancient light. The Starforge had awakened. General Reeves approached her, his face pale, voice low. "We confirmed it, Captain. There's a massive structure beneath the moon's surface. It's not natural." Elara nodded. "It's not. It's ours." The Apex leader stepped forward, armor shimmering under the harsh lights. "The forge was built by your kind. It creates weapons that can burn stars. It can stop the swarm, but only if awakened fully." Reeves frowned. "And how do we do that?" The Apex's golden eyes turned toward Elara. "It requires human command. Blood that carries the mark of the Makers." Elara froze. "You mean me?" "Yes," the Apex said. "You are the key." The room went silent. Outside, explosions echoed across the desert. The swarm had reached orbit, feeding on satellites, warships, anything that moved. Earth's defenses were collapsing. Elara took a deep breath. "Then we don't have time. Prepare ship. We're going to the moon." Hours later, Elara's shuttle rose through the storm sky, breaking free of the atmosphere. The earth below was scarred, lines of fire marking where the swarm touched down. Beside her sat 2 Apex guards, silent and still. Their armor pulsed faintly with the same rhythm as her heartbeat. As the shuttle neared the moon, the view was breathtaking and terrifying. The Starforge wasn't just a machine. It was alive. Massive metallic roots spread beneath the lunar surface, glowing veins of silver light. The structure pulsed like a heartbeat, responding to Elara's presence. The Apex leader's voice came through the comms. "The Forge remembers its creator." The shuttle landed near a vast circular gate half buried in the dust. Symbols glowed faintly along its edge. The same symbols carved into the Apex armor, and the same ones on Elara's grandmother's necklace. She placed her hand on the gate. The symbols flared to life. "Identity confirmed." A deep voice echoed in her mind. "Command recognized." "Starforge online." The entire moon trembled. Energy rippled through its core, shooting out beams of light that stretched across the sky. Every Apex ship in orbit turned toward it, as if answering a silent command. From Earth, people looked up and saw it, a ring of glowing light around the moon. Some wept, some prayed. But everyone knew something ancient had awakened. Back on Earth, General Reeves watched the spectacle through the base's main screen. "God help us," he whispered. "She did it." A scientist turned to him, eyes wide. "Sir, the Forge is transmitting something. A signal in old human code." "Translate it." Reeves ordered. The message appeared on the screen. "All units align. The command returns. Stand ready." Reeves stared at the words, stunned. Human ships, damaged, scattered, hopeless, began receiving the signal. Then something impossible happened. The Apex fleets began merging with human vessels, forming hybrid formations, combining alien armor with human weapons. The first united fleet of man and monster rose into orbit. The alliance of blood and memory was reborn. Elara stood inside the glowing core of the Starforge. The chamber was massive, walls of light stretching endlessly, filled with holographic memories. She saw the past, the first empire in its golden age. Humans and Apex walking side by side. Cities floating between stars. Peace born from strength. And then the fall. The swarm devouring everything. The desperate choice to destroy it all. And the final message from the first command. If the darkness returns, awaken the Forge. Unite the blood of man and beast once more. Elara whispered, "We're back." She activated the control platform. The Starforge roared to life. Light spread across the moon's surface like fire and oil. In orbit, enormous construct began to form. Ancient warships, built from lunar metal, rising into space like ghosts of the past. Each one carried the mark of command. The Apex leader appeared on her holo display. "Command! The swarm has reached Mars' orbit. They devour the red world." Elara's eyes hardened. "Then we meet them there." As it was before, the Apex said, bowing its head. For the first time, Elara felt it, the weight of the Empire in her veins. Memories not her own filled her mind. The strategies, the victories, The O's swarmed by millions. She wasn't just a captain anymore. She was a command. The combined fleet moved into formation. Humans and Apex together, one purpose, one will. As they left Earth's orbit, a message was broadcast to every surviving world. This is humanity. We do not kneel. We do not run. We remember who we are. The stars burned brighter. The Apex roared in unison, their ships echoing the sound across the void. And far ahead, the swarm moved like a storm, endless, dark, alive. Illyra stood at the bridge of the lead ship, the Starforge fleet behind her. "Let them come," she said. "We've waited 40,000 years for this." The war for the galaxy had begun again, and this time, humanity wasn't alone. The void between worlds was alive with war. From Earth's orbit to the red storms of Mars, space burned to the light of ancient fire. Human ships, sleek, desperate, and brave, fought beside the dark, roaring vessels of the Apex. Together, they formed a single armada, the Starforge fleet, and at its heart stood Captain Illyra Mendez, now called Command, humanity's first leader in 40,000 years. The battle began without warning. The swarm poured from the black, endless and formless, shapes of liquid shadow, devouring everything in their path. Every Apex weapon fired, beams of blue light cutting through the dark. Human ships followed, launching waves of missiles and plasma fire. But the swarm did not die easily. It moved like smoke, reforming every time it was struck. For every fragment destroyed, 10 more appeared. General Reeves' voice crackled through the comms. "They're all over us. We can't hold the line." Illyra stood on the bridge of her command ship, watching the chaos unfold. She felt fear, but also something deeper, memory. She had been here before, long ago, in another life. She whispered to herself, "The pattern repeats, but the outcome doesn't have to." She turned to her crew. "Signal the Forge. Activate the Ascendant Protocol." The officers stared in shock. "That's not tested." Illyra's eyes hardened. "Do it." Far away, the Starforge pulsed with light. From its core, massive constructs unfolded, golden wings of energy forming around the moon. The entire structure began channeling power through the fleet, linking every human and Apex ship into one living network. "Command link established," the Forge's AI announced, synchronizing consciousness. Suddenly, every human and every Apex saw through each other's eyes. Thoughts merged. Voices joined. The fear that once divided them vanished. They were one. And for the first time since the fall of the First Empire, humanity and its creations fought as a single mind. The swarm surged forward again, a tidal wave of darkness. But this time, the fleet moved like a storm of light, every ship shifting in perfect unison, every beam striking the same target at once. The void exploded. Thousands of swarm entities disintegrated under the force of synchronized fire. The Apex roared, their ancient war cries shaking the comms. Humans shouted with them, no longer separate, one species reborn through unity. Reeves' voice came through again, this time filled with awe. "My God, it's working." Illyra smiled faintly. "Not God, General. Humanity." Hours passed. The battle stretched across the solar system. Mars burned. Jupiter's moons cracked under the pressure of war. But slowly, the swarm began to falter. The light of the Starforge grew stronger with every fallen enemy. Still, victory came with cost. Ships fell silent one by one. Thousands died, human and Apex alike, their lives burning bright for the sake of survival. Inside her command ship, Illyra's systems began to fail. Sparks filled the air and alarm screamed. Her first officer shouted, "We've lost shields." The swarm's breaking through. Illyra looked out at the dark horizon where the swarm's heart pulsed, a vast black sphere feeding on light. She knew what she had to do. "All units," she said quietly, "pull back. Leave this to the Forge." Reeves protested. "Command, you won't survive." Illyra smiled. "We already did. 40,000 years ago. This time we finish it." She turned to the Apex leader on her hollow display. "Can you protect the Forge if I fail?" The massive creature bowed its head. "We were made for that command, But we will not fail. Elara placed her hand on the ship's core interface. Then let's remind the galaxy who we are. The Starforge flared to life one last time. Beams of light extended from the moon like the arms of a star. Elara's ship, the Orpheus Ascendant, locked its course straight into the swarm's heart. As she accelerated, memories returned, the faces of the First Empire, the voices of those who came before her, and the promise they made. If the darkness comes again, humanity will rise again. Her ship broke through the wall of shadows, diving deep into the core of the swarm. Everything went white. For a moment, there was silence. Then light from the heart of darkness. The Starforge unleashed a pulse that tore across the stars. The swarm screamed and shattered, burning away like ashen wind. Across the system, ships stopped firing, watching as the impossible happened. The black sphere dissolved into starlight. The void went still. The war was over. Hours later, the surviving fleet drifted quietly above the earth. The moon glowed brighter than ever, covered in golden lines of energy. At its center, the forge continued to hum, alive, eternal. The Apex leader stood aboard the remains of Elara's command ship, staring at the empty captain's chair. It bowed its head. She led as they once did. It whispered, until the end. General Reeves placed a hand on the Apex's shoulder. She saved us all. The creature looked out at the stars. No, she reminded you who you were. Weeks later, across Earth and the colonies, humanity began to rebuild. The Apex stayed, not as conquerors, but as allies. Together, they restored the old worlds, reignited lost technologies, and sent fleets to the stars once more. And above them all, the Starforge burned a new sun in the night, a monument to what humanity had always been, not just survivors, but leaders of creation. As the Apex said, kneeling beneath the glow of that golden light, the galaxy forgot who ruled it, but the Apex remembered, and now so will everyone else. And thus, after 40,000 years of silence, the throne of humanity rose again. The First Empire was reborn, and the stars, at last, belonged to mankind once more.